YouTubers are getting involved in the net neutrality debate and trying to make a difference for the better. Listen to this. A group of more than 100 YouTube stars is calling on the Federal Communications Commission to preserve its net neutrality rules, which are currently in the process of being repealed. In an open letter posted on Thursday, 132 internet entrepreneurs said that eliminating the rules could imperil their industry. Online video traffic already represents over 70% of all global web traffic and is estimated to grow over 80% of all traffic by 2020, the letter reads. Our rapidly growing industry employs hundreds of thousands of people, and yet it barely existed more than a decade ago. As creators in this fast-moving industry, changes to the existing net neutrality rules would have an outsized impact on our field and jeopardize our livelihood. Among the acts signing the letter are Benny Fine of Fine Brothers Entertainment, a group that runs a popular comedy video channel on YouTube and other platforms. The Fine Brothers have 15.7 million subscribers on YouTube alone. Also signing on to the letter is Dane Bodegeimer, whose web series The Annoying Orange has nearly 6 million YouTube subscribers. Altogether, the signees reach a collective audience of 160.6 million people, according to the Internet Creators Guild, which organized the letter. The letter is addressed to Republican FCC Chairman Ajit Pai, whose proposal to do away with net neutrality rules legal framework is currently in a public comment period. We're in this for the long haul. We will fight for as long as it takes to convince you and your colleagues to oppose any legislation or regulatory changes that would threaten real, enforceable Title II net neutrality, the group writes. These protections promote cultural and economic freedoms that drive creativity, job creation, and investment in broadband, and importantly, prevent telecom monopolies from controlling what we see, hear, and create on the internet. So this is, a rare issue where you actually should have bipartisan agreement among actual people, not soulless politicians, but where, somebody like Glenn Beck should be able to get together with somebody like me and we say, look, man, don't change these net neutrality rules, because the way it works is, the way the rules are right now, it makes it so that the internet is open and free. You have equal access to anywhere you want to go online. If they get rid of these net neutrality rules, what happens is the internet service providers, they can basically create a slow lane. They say, oh, it's a fast lane for some. No, that would mean people who basically pay their bribes get faster or normal internet speed, and people who don't pay their bribes, can't afford to pay their bribes because they're not a giant corporation, well, then they get their internet slowed down big time. So you'd have this fractionalization of the internet, where one internet service provider has a deal with all these companies, this internet service provider has a deal with all those companies, that internet service provider has a deal with all these companies. And it's like you'd be effectively shopping around as to which internet service provider you're going to get based on what sites have a deal with that internet service provider, and the ones who are not in that network of that internet service provider, they get everything slowed down. So it's a horrible idea. It's a terrible idea. And, the last time around, what happened was there were enough big money donors who were against net neutrality, well, the removing of the net neutrality rules, I should say, that we were able to defeat it under Obama. So there were a lot of Wall Street firms that invested in startups, and the startup companies would get crushed if you remove the net neutrality rules. So they were able to lobby enough to kill this. But now the internet service providers are winning the lobbying battle behind the scenes. Trump, is basically appointing what is effectively a wet dream for the internet service providers. Ajit Pai is just their water boy, and he's doing whatever the fuck they want. And now, net neutrality is on the way out. In fact, they already made the decision that it's going to go on the way out, that it's done. So this is horrible, man. This is absolutely terrible. Here's the real threat to free speech. That's the point in this story, is that the real threat to free speech is corporate control over speech. So when you regulate the internet as a public utility and say it's open and free and you have equal access to everywhere, no matter what the political opinions are or the financial situation is of a given site, well, that's the way it should be because it's a public utility. Everybody has equal access, free, you go wherever you want. But this is going to make it so that now it's time to play favorites. Who is going to pay their bribes to the internet service provider? Okay, you're going to get faster access. Hey, who's talking in a political way that might damage the ISP? Because if somebody's, taking swings at the ISP, maybe you slow down traffic to their site too. Maybe if somebody expresses the incorrect political opinions, you slow down access to their site too. And that's why people on the right and the left should be equally concerned about that. People on the right would think, well, they're going to slow me down because they're not going to be kind to right-wingers. People on the left, like me, are going to say, well, I'm not very fond of the corporate takeover of our politics. I'm going to rail against that, and they'll slow down access to me. So it's terrible, man. You don't want to go down this road because this is the slipperiest of all slippery slopes. It is inevitable you get more corporate control, which effectively is authoritarian control over the internet. Couldn't get any worse, man. When they couldn't find a way to regulate it at the government level, control the speech at the government level, because you have the First Amendment, you can't do that. That's when now they're deferring to, well, we'll have the giant multinational corporations and the internet service providers. They can control it. Terrible. This is terrible, and I think these YouTube stars are right to do this. And I'm a little bitter that nobody reached out to me to ask me to sign on to that letter because I would have done it. I think I could have generated a hell of a lot more signatures from other YouTubers I know for this letter. But to be fair, the people who I could have gotten to sign it are probably people who they don't want to have this letter doesn't want to be associated with our controversial names. So maybe we would have brought down the letter in class. No, that's not the right word. We would have brought down the letter in respectability in the eyes of the establishment. That's the best way to describe it.